Big movers, what now? Well, that's what I often ask myself. I go through my charts every single week, and I usually look at what were the big movers for the week up and down and say to myself, okay, they made some big moves. So what now? So we're going to look at the stocks from last week, a few that moved up, a few that moved down, and take a look at the charts. This is for short-term traders, people that may do swing trades or option traders, really, for holds just over the next few weeks. And I think you're going to find this interesting because I kind of go over things, how I look at the charts, and I think you'll find this valuable. We're going to start out with Intel. Intel was one of the big upside movers of the week. And you can see over here, I made a little note. Intel and NVIDIA announced a multi-generational partnership to co-develop custom data centers and PC products. That's boosting Intel's relevance in hyperscale and enterprise markets. So you can see on the left here, we have our daily chart. On the right, we have a 2-hour chart. And I like to work on this kind of combination for short-term trading. You can see in here we have the cycle brackets on the bottom, which are showing us the magnificent rhythms that we see here in Intel. So what does that tell me? Well, this was a strong cycle, finished above where it started. This one also, so we call those right-hand translations, positive configuration. This one was crazy because it just exploded up here in the news and pulled back, and that's how it made that cycle low right over there. And you can see that's the same place it made the cycle low right over there. So what does that show us when I look at this? Well, this was where that cycle low came on the daily chart. And you can see in here, look at these momentum indicators in here. See on the bottom here is the slim ribbon PO. And every time you see a green arrow, it's warning you about upside momentum. Here you see red arrows, and you can see it was saying, well, if anything, it's not going to go up or going to go down. It actually didn't give you a lot of downside there, but the stock had stalled and was in a range. And here it was telling you about the strength, and the shape of this is really telling you it's strong. Slim ribbon right in here giving you this very strong upside reading. So right now it's extremely overbought. You see over here those orange dots? That's our option bias indicator, and it says it's extremely overbought. We could look for a pullback, but to where and what do we want to do? So what now? Well, I want to look for this stock to pull back. This is your buy zone over here, like 33.5 down to 31.60. I'd like to see it pull back in there. To me, that would be a buying opportunity. When it gets into that support zone, well, I'd like to get that opportunity. Let's stay in the stocks that move to the upside. Let's look at Marvell, MRVL, in the semiconductor category. You can see in here, Marvell announced $5 billion stock repurchase authorization and $1 billion in accelerated buyback, signaling strong management conviction. The company previewed its next-generation interconnected portfolio for AI data centers. Everybody, all you have to do is say data center, and the stock goes up. Ahead of the ECOC conference, showcasing their chiplet-based designs and co-packaged optics. It's a lot of words to say, well, they're getting deeper in AI, and that's always good for these stocks right now. Analysts and media highlighted Marvell's custom AI chip growth outlook, and you could see that was great. Look here over at the cycle rhythms that you see right here. That's where your low was right here. That's where your low was. Remember, cycles are measured from low to low. This was a negative cycle. See that little island right over there? And then it turned up right here and now has gotten back up near that level. When it gets up near that high, it's really proving the strength that's coming in here. You can see the reversal scout turns positive right over there. The slim ribbon positive. You're getting now green over here. Look what it was doing when it was giving you those momentum signals right there. Option bias indicator, which had turned negative, now is positive again. Here we go again, looking for support areas on the downside to be a buyer. Yes, this is very positive, and I would want to buy a dip in Marvell. This is the 23% at 79. Usually it pulls back lower than that, but this is pretty strong. And the slim ribbon, as you could see here on the 2-hour chart, is often support. So maybe it only gets down to there. I'm going to be looking for $79 and saying, Well, that looks like a spot it could stop and see what the price action is. Maybe it gets down to under 76 over here. That's all possible, but that'll all be positive in a buy zone as far as I'm concerned. So what's, what now? Well, now is to just wait, I think, for a buying opportunity. Halliburton had a big, strong upside move. Also, you could see the cycle rhythms in here. I put in the minor and dominant cycles because there was pretty good downside moves in those minor cycles, and that would mean you'd probably get some kind of a pullback in here. But again, we have positive momentum. See that little orange dot right over there? That says it went too far. It says it's at an extreme and it's probably going to stall. Again, we're looking at the 23.6 here. We're looking at the 38.2. In this case, because there's probably at least a week of corrective process over here, I'd probably be waiting for it to get under 24, maybe 23.60 as the area to buy. But the what now, as far as I'm concerned on this big mover, is that now you wait a little bit and then look for the upside. One more we'll look on the long side, a big mover here, Electronic Arts. The news in here that they've reported, they're nearly done with a $50 billion deal to go private. Look here on the daily chart. You could see one positive cycle after another. You want to learn about cycle analysis, go to AskSlim.com, go to the workshop tab. I've got a free video there and you can learn about cycle analysis. But you could see these positive upward moves in here as there was accumulation going on all the way up in these cycles, trading up in that range, and then it blasts to the upside. Big mover, what do you do now? Nothing. I mean, the deal's done. It's gone. I can't see a trade that you could possibly do in here. So Electronic Arts is going to go private. That's a look at the positive ones. Let's now move into the stocks that move down. Let's take a look at CarMax in here. And you can see on the daily chart, nice cycle rhythms in here. Here's where you can see where the momentum turns down. And each of those downward turns in the reversal scout is a warning. And when you get these negative cycles, it says it's likely to go lower. Look at this big downside gap right over there. Downgrades on inventory mismanagement and low demand. You get this big downside gap. So here's your short-term sell zone right there. So you can see in here that it might have another, 4 to 8 days in here in this particular downside cycle. But if it makes the low, then if it rallies, then this is your short-term sell zone right over here, assuming it's made the low, and that would be somewhere around $50 to $52 right in there if it got a pop. If it got a pop right now, I probably wouldn't believe that low is in place, and I would look for another move to the downside. What next? Well, big downside move. It looks like a lot of trouble. I'd be a seller in this sell zone when it tries to get to the upside. That's CarMax. Let's take a look at Freeport FCX. This was a debacle. This is one we have a lot of cycle analysis on because it's in our regular focus list. So you can see in here I've got a lot of lines and annotations in there. And here, look what happened in this cycle right here. It rallied and it didn't make the new high and then it got under that low. We call that a left-hand translation. When that happens, it's likely to fall into this low trough period right over there. And you can see it's doing it. Just kind of the news fits the cycle patterns as we see right over here as it has this big breakdown. A deadly mud rush at its Grasberg block cave mine in Indonesia. That claimed 2 lives and left 5 workers missing. Analysts have slashed projections on this one. Multi-quarter disruptions is what they say. Of 35% of FCX mining capacity. They're mining copper and gold, and that's going to cut the supplies. We can see that copper and gold have really been super strong, but this is a company that probably won't benefit from that for a while. Let's see what happens, and maybe trades down here to this 32 level right near over there. And you can see here on this chart, we have that same thing right over here. You can see the momentum turns negative right over there on this date right there. It's red right here. A lot of chop in here, not a lot of value on the 2-hour slim ribbon PO, as you see right over there. But here's where it rolls over on the reversal scout right there, and we see it turns red right over here on the daily. and we're waiting for this to turn negative. It hasn't done that yet on the option bias indicator, but it looks like it will soon. This is really bad. I mean, it looks to me like it'll trade down to 32 or lower, and if anything, I would look at this area right over here, which is the short-term sell zone right there. If it were able to pop its head up really quickly over that 38 area, well, to me, if it did that right now, it would be a sell looking for another week or two on the downside. So big mover, what now? I'd be a seller of this stock if it tried to rally, at least for now. Again, we're looking at short term here over the next 1 to 3 weeks for swing traders and option traders. That's a look at FCX. Let's take a look at 2 airline stocks which have gotten hammered in here. Alaska Air. So this is interesting. You could see the cycle rhythms that are in here. I have these little arrows showing you where the slim ribbon, where the reversal scout turns down in a cycle. It often gives you a warning of a decline. Here it turned down here. Here you had a little bit of a chop. That's kind of unusual in the middle of the cycle. It turned positive again. Here's where it turned negative. Now, you see that a bottom is due right in here. And it is in some support area. So if I just grab our tools right over here, and I'm just going to look at this last cycle because that's where you measure from this from here to here, and you can see there's a 78.6% support right down over here at that low at about $50. So I think if it fell down there, that would probably be an area it should bounce from. You see my note in here. This group action on really withdrawal for several of the airlines, Alaska, Air American, Southwest Airlines, they've withdrawn their forecasts, and they're saying that they really can't give full year guidance. They cited economic uncertainty. We certainly have that. Rising costs and softening travel demand. This move spooked investors, signaling that management sees storm clouds ahead. See right over here, this note, it's really too late to sell and too early to buy as we get into this bottoming area here on the daily. If it breaks under the 78.6% in these next several days, the probability of a rally of any significance is going to be very small. We'll be looking for something like 53 to 55.5 as a potential upside move, and then probably as a sell after that. So I say too late to sell and too early to buy. American Airlines is going to give you the same look right over here. Again, you can see on here, we have the half cycles drawn in here. Here's that low right there. Here's that half cycle low right over there. And we're just a matter of a few days from where this trough should be. Right there. That says to me, again, too late to buy, too early to sell. Same reasons that it fell right in here is they just don't know how to forecast what their earnings are going to look like, and they see declining demand. No matter what you hear about GDP being better, well, I don't really believe it, and I think that we're going to get into a very sluggish economy moving forward. AI can't hold everything up for much longer, in my opinion. And the last stock, I think this one is very interesting. This is Oracle. Let's just look at these last cycles on the daily chart right over here. And you can see what this stock likes to do around that half cycle area is put a little flag in. It did it right over there, as you could see. Gave you that little flag right in here, gave you a little flag right in here. It's giving you a big flag right in here, right on support. This says, well, there may be a few more days in this corrective period. Maybe it chops around some more. Here's that support zone on the 2-hour chart. And you can see that the stock went from positive to neutral to now on short term a little bit negative. So what we're going to wait for on this big mover, which had both a big upside gap and then this downside pullback to support, is just a little more time. Let's see if it can get a little more correction, stay in this support zone that it has here on the daily, which is right here marked off on the 2-hour chart, and then give us some positive momentum right in here. What's really interesting here is that you see on the daily chart, the reversal scout is just going straight up. That is a good warning when you see that this is a flag, a bull flag that's forming, and it's going to move up again. It's just timing to me. I mean, if you want to buy it for an upside move between 283 and 267, pretty wide support range right over there, but to me, that's where it's going to hold. And then sometime, maybe in the next week, finish this corrective process and then begin to move upside again. So big mover, what now? To me in Oracle, it means just wait a little bit and then look for the upside to resume. Again, everything that we do is probabilistic. Everything I show you is based on our indicators. This was for short term only, and that means that you're a holder of kind of 1 to 3 weeks. Or you're an option trader. So swing traders, option traders, short-term traders. That's who this fits for. Check out our site at AskSlim.com. Sign up for our Snapshot Lite. That's in the free stuff on the top of our website. And you'll be able to get Matt's spectacular analysis on the S&P 500 every day for free. Questions, comments, write to team at AskSlim.com. Usual disclaimers right over here. Thanks for watching.